Hey, welcome back to Swanson's Garage, everybody. If I sound a little bit off, it's because I'm on the tail end of a cold here. I went back to Wisconsin, got some Michigan parts tractor parts, and somebody was also generous enough to send me back with a bit of a head cold, so that's fun. Didn't even get out here last weekend because I was under the weather. I'm feeling pretty good now, so let's get back at it. I took apart this Michigan fan assembly today to see what we had to work with. If you remember, we're going to use this fan blade is the plan in place of that bent up one. This one's pretty pitted. We'll get her sandblasted up and see what it looks like. I mean, we always could make an attempt to straighten that one, but every fan blade and every arm for every fan blade on that one is bent. So I just got a bad feeling it would be hard to get that all straightened back out and to spin true. Where this one is not bent up, but it is severely pitted. So I don't know which is worse. Some of this is just crusty, rusty ick on it, so I'm hoping it'll look a little bit better once it's cleaned up. Anyway, so we got that now. Run that through the sandblaster. We need one of these washers. We'll clean up one of them. Basically, the rest of the stuff is just spare parts. Looks like a good hub. Looks like a good mounting bracket. The rest of this stuff is run-of-the-mill, worn-out parts, although this shaft from the crustiest tractor actually looks like one of the least worn. I mean, the bearing itself is actually still, there's some shiny on it. And there was actually, where was it now? You could actually see the Hyatt USA 16876 number on there, which is kind of amazing. None of the other ones were even intact. They came apart in a pile of rusty pieces, if you remember. So we're not going to use this because it's still rusty and bad, but it's somewhat intact. It's kind of surprising. There's the outer part of it. Number was on there too. 4169 Hyatt USA. Anyway, we'll put these couple parts in the sandblast pile, and the rest of us will bag and tag and move on to the next thing. A little bit closer inspection. Both of these actually have considerable wear and stuff to them. We'll just make a new washer. Never mind. I also brought back the front pulley from the Michigan parts tractor to use to replace the cracked pulley from the 26 here. The same thing, both 26s. Well, found out on a further inspection, started scraping the crud off and looking at it a little bit closer. This one is cracked on the keyway in the exact same spot as this one. Both on that left-hand edge of that keyway. So that's unfortunate. So I don't know what we're going to do there. We have to try to figure out if there's any way to fix these. Because finding other ones is getting kind of scarce now. Anybody got any good ideas? I'm all ears. Next up, I brought back the better of the two final drive backer plates, again from the Michigan parts tractor. Looks like this one has a good felt seal ring on it. We're going to take that off and use that for this tractor that we're working on here. So first up is to scrape all the layer of crud off of this one and see what we got to work with. Okay, level 1 tidy. Ground off the heads of the rivets. Now we got it set up, punching out the rivets. Same process we did before. Regular viewers will probably remember this from a couple months back. We did it with the other side. If you're new here, you can go back and watch some of the old videos. Shows how we did all this. Yeah, I got it all cleaned up. Good news, bad news situation. So no matter how I swing it, I don't think I can make this ring work on this backer plate. They're the same, but they're not the same. the hole spacings are just a little bit different. You get that accumulative error when you go all the way around. When you start with it, lined up. After a couple holes, after a couple holes, they're no longer lined up. And no matter how you do it, I tried every orientation. That doesn't matter. They're equally spaced. It's just the spacings are just a little bit different. And I almost suspect that maybe it was a whoops even from brand new, because I compared like the backer plates and they sure look the same to me, or really, really close. So I'm wondering if, I don't know how they did this, if they actually clamped it and drilled it all in one, or if these were done on separate machines. Nobody will ever know at this point. It's lost to history. But I'm wondering if it was some kind of a misalignment, a whoops, because every one of these rivets on this one, when I took it apart, were all like smooshed offset, like the holes weren't even really lined up when they did it originally. And the other backer plates, that wasn't the case. All the rivets came out pretty easy, straight. It's like these never even were lined up, even from new, if that makes sense. It's like they made it work. They forced the rivets through, but the rivets kind of deformed and did funny things. And I tried, I got my clamps here, and I've been checking the spacings with the dividers, and I had some rivets in, trying to convince myself that, maybe I can just make it work. But I don't think it's worth the effort. It's not going to come out good. I can tell right away. And I don't want to get halfway around struggling, putting the new felt on, and then have to take it all back off and start over. I'm going to think about it here, but I think I've kind of convinced myself just to get some new stock, roll up a new ring, and drill it to fit this backer plate. I think that'll probably be the best solution. If you got a better idea, I'm all ears. But I think at this point, that's probably the easiest solution. Just make a new one, make it fit. I'm kind of bummed out if that's what I end up doing. I could have done that a long time ago, because we've had this waiting. But I was waiting to get the original ring to save us some work, so we wouldn't have to make a new one. But might have to do that after all. Oh well. So I also brought back some of these reworked linkages. That's from Swanson Machine Shop. If you remember, Dad bored out these clutch handles and pressed in oil light bushing to take up all the slop there. He made some new shoulder bolts to replace these wore out ones here, to take up all the slop for that linkages. Beautiful. So we can dry fit them now. He also made a new pin for our brake band lever. We bored out this. We made a custom oversized stepped pin for there. Take up all the slop from that. There's the original pin we had to sacrifice, because you remember it was seized in this arm, so we had to cut it to get it apart and press it out. It'll take up all the play, because this is an original pin here to show how loosey-goosey everything is. That's not acceptable. We got to do better than that. So I'll swap out, put this one in to show you the difference. So here's the reworked arm with the new pin. We still need to drill for our cotter pin hole, but that's not necessary at this moment. We can see that's an acceptable amount of play there. Just a little bit, just enough so things will function smoothly, but it's not all loosey-goosey like it was before. We can live with that. So I can add that to the sandblast pile. So here's the new clutch handle on the original pin. Not terrible, but there's some play there. I think what we will do is make a new clutch pin for here, because you caliper this and there's some wear and stuff on that. So I think if we make a new one, that should be almost perfect then, almost no play. And we have to make a new one for the one in the yard anyway, because that one, the threads in the housing are rather worn. So we'll make a custom pin with oversized threads to fix that problem. So there again, if we're going to make one, it's just as easy to make two. And these are a pretty easy part. Basically all it is a piece of threaded rod with a little bit of machines on the end for the cotter pin. That's just a spot to put the wrench to tighten it up at the very end. So basically, depending on what a bolt measures, we could just take a bolt, cut it off, machine a couple of flats in it, done. At least for this one. The other one we'll have to make a custom thread. But anyway, we're moving right along. That's half the problem is fixed there. So that's a good step forward there. It looks like it's going to be one of those bounce around on a lot of little projects type of video weeks. I try not to do that with you guys. It may not look like it, but I really do give an effort to try to focus on just a couple of things each episode. But some weeks that just doesn't work. This is one of those, you know, I'm kind of going through all the stuff that I brought back and trying to wrap up a few loose ends type of a project week. So anyway, we brought back this throttle quadrant from the Michigan Parts Tractor with the intention of trying to get this lever off to replace the one we broke. It's going to be a challenge because it is crusty. Nothing moves, of course. We got to get this farmer contraption off of here. We got to try to remove it without breaking it. And probably take the whole thing apart. And we'll have a good quadrant, lever, flipper for some spare parts. See what we can do. Can't believe I got that all apart. Even got the little, can you believe that little spring was still kind of intact inside of there? Got that little cross pin out. That's left of the little tooth. That's what's left of the piece for the bottom. It's crusty, but we'll sandblast it up, see what it looks like. Got this loose, but not out. Cool. Well, in the interest of continuing to take stuff apart and see what we have to work with, let's take apart this oil pressure gauge. Again, from the 1525 Parts Tractor. That wasn't too bad. It's the case of once you do one or two, then you know the process. It's pretty easy to take things apart then. Little bugger to get that screw loose. And yeah, no big deal because it was pretty crusty, and that indicator washer on top is all crusty anyway. Into that shaft is a little, no, more than a little, a lot of pitted. But other than that, the internals look pretty good and clean. There was a little bit of oil left on everything. The gauge might even be savable. Same thing. Sandblast pile, bag and tag. Move on to the next thing. Well, we might as well continue taking apart Michigan Parts Tractor stuff. Got the governor here. I'm crossing my fingers that we might have some good internals. It still actually spins, things move. It looks promising. Might still be shot, probably is, but let's take it apart and find out. Looks pretty good so far. These gears, this is loose on here, you know, that pin is worn. But the gears themselves look pretty darn good. Everything spins. I mean, look how smooth that spins. That's crazy. Let's crack it open, see what's on the inside. Ooh, that's a good sign. It's not full of rust. Okay, got the guts out. Just to look at the linkages for future reference. So when that linkage is pointed straight down, this one is 90 degrees, the same as this arm. The notches are pointing up. The little linkage in the top there, when that arm is up, parallel with this one, it's pointing up. That should be all we need to know for reassembling all these. There's a better shot of the guts. There's the spring. There's all the weights, bearings. Everything looks pretty decent. I got a feeling we're going to end up using this governor on one of the tractors because it seems to be in a lot better shape than the other governors were. There, that's a bare casting. Got that all apart. Lots of cleaning and sandblasting to do now. But as far as I can see, nothing is wrong with it. No cracks or breaks. Kind of an interesting observation we talked about when the other ones I took apart this tube. In the one, there was a hole for the oil on the bottom here, and on the other one, it was on the top. This one, it's neither. It doesn't line up. It's kind of down there. I don't know what's going on there. If the guy putting those together wasn't paying attention or what. Like I said before, in my mind, that hole should be on the top, so any oil splashing around falls into that tube to lubricate that shaft inside of that tube. So, something we'll have to address. And most of all, this is apart. A little bit more to take apart. That shaft and this little assembly, but that's pretty easy to do. Lots more cleanup in our future. That's about a wrap for this week. Maybe a little bit shorter than our normal video, but I wanted to make sure to get something out to you guys after not being around last week. It was, like I said, I was down sick, so I didn't feel like coming out and working on anything. We got a few things done this week though, so that's good. If you hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already, I would appreciate it. Helps the channel grow a little bit. Hit the like button if you like what you see. And the most important thing is to make sure you share this. Tell your friends that might like this. The channel has been pretty stagnant about growth lately. It'd be nice to get some numbers growing a little bit more. Appreciate all your views. Hope to see you all next week. Thanks for coming, hanging out at Swanson's Garage. Later.